right, all right. Oh, good morning, good morning. How is everyone this morning? I mean, you all are serious to start this early, you know. This is when I get to bed. All right, I just want to bring a little bit of energy before we start, and I thought, okay, do you all know where you are? Do you know where you are? All right, we're a mile high. You know, we are high all the time, not because of all that other stuff, but because of these fabulous mountains and these fabulous people, and I'm a native, and I say welcome. And so right now, just give somebody a little hug, a little good morning, a little bit of aloha, or a jumbo, or whatever you say. Just say good morning to each other before we start. Yeah, because it's a wonderful morning, and you're in Denver. I am thrilled to have you here in our home. I want to thank the Americans for the Arts for being so just so present in terms of what's going on in this country right now. My company is 48 years old, and I'm only about 20. So I want you to know how blessed we are. But I hang out with young people, and they make me aware that they are serious about change. And so I hope we have asked young people, because now I'm going to be 70 next year, and I still feel young. And I feel like I'm blessed to be able to do what I do every morning. So it's a blessing to be able to call myself an artist. It was not always that way, especially in Denver, when they thought either we were we were either riding horses or on skis. They did not know that there were artists in Denver, and they did not know there were artists of color from all different backgrounds. And so I thank you for focusing on equity. And what does that really mean, equity? And how do we make it inclusive and diverse and all of those really juicy words? What do those words really mean? And so I think we have to ask each other, what does it mean to us? What does it mean to me? So I've been fortunate to have unbelievable support around me. First of all, my husband of 48 years. Can you believe running the company 48 years and having a husband? We're about 96 years together because this is overtime. You know what I mean? So it's overtime, keeping it all together. But what I want you to know, we are going to perform with you this morning. And did you hear me? We're going to perform with you. Did you know you came this morning to perform? Ashe, here we go. So I want to thank so many people. The NEA, I was fortunate to be on the National Council for 5 years under President Clinton and George Bush and all of, you know what I'm saying. It was very deep. But I didn't know it could get this deep. I didn't know it could get this deep. But I think that we almost lost the arts, and we almost lost the National Endowment for the Arts. And I just want us to know that being very politically aware and socially aware is what every one of us have to be. And who are Americans? Who are Americans? I too am an American. And we look at all of our Americans, and we know we come from all over the world. So I say, we are humans. We come in as artists. We bring people together through humanity. And so it's through connecting to that universal heartbeat. So everybody stand up so we can connect to that real quickly, because we're going to do a little ditty. Can you say ditty? We're going to do a ditty this morning, a ditty that unites us. And I brought my Chloe Grant Abel, who is unbelievable. She just premiered Donald Mchale's newest work. And Donnie Mchale, he's one of our great icons in the arts. And he just made his transition, and we just celebrated him in Los Angeles this last few days. But his work was about humanity. How do we bring a consciousness of who we are as people? People, that's all. And we come from all over the world. We speak different languages. We have different values. And so it is work to be equitable, because we didn't all start from the same space, the same place. But this morning we're going to be equitable and give you a chance to dance with us. So here we go. So now, dance is kind of crazy. You got to, first of all, get down into the ground. Get down. Plie. They call it plies. You got to get your plie on, all right? So the rhythm is like this. 1, 2, and we're mathematicians. We count to 8. We go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I want this side. Let me see. I see Gary. I love it. All right, from our Bombay Stanton over here. He's a soloist. With our Tim from American Express. So you all come on out here. So we're going like this. Now, some of us like to be slow. Some of us, we have different rhythms. So it's like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I like to be a little fast. You know, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ha! And then we freeze. So you get to carry on whatever rhythm you're in because I accept diversity. So here we go. So some of you might want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You like to groove. 2, 3. I see you grooving out there. I like it. 7, 8. Now I want those who like to have another little energy to hit it with me. Here we go. We go and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Freeze. So however you want to play this body this morning, you know the body this morning has a different thing. Now we're going to dance it. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now out. 8. Now bring it in. Bring in all the energy in. Okay, and then we do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bring it in. Now, quick ones. All right, here we go. I love it. I love it. Here we go. Now dance with someone. Y'all are all dancing with me. I love it. I love it. Now dance with someone. Here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 2, 2, 3, 4. I see you. Here we go. Now hit it. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and freeze. I love it. Hug somebody. Here we go, y'all. I love it. All right. Beautiful, honey. All right, welcome. Welcome to the Lush Life. It's a work that I did with Maya Angelou. Dr. Angelou inspired me, but I wanted to thank the Arvada Center for being the presenter that brought us together, because it's the presenters that have that vision. So they brought Maya Angelou together, and we wrote a piece, a 3-hour work together, and this is a little ditty, and I choreographed on her to dance because she was a dancer before she was a poet, and we had a ball. So enjoy the Lush Life, and then come to our theater. We're in a historic church in Denver, the first black church that was really built, Shorter AME Church. We have now built our theater, our school, our year-round everything, and we go around the world dancing, bringing art, creativity, inclusiveness, and compassion and passion. Did you hear it? Compassion, 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 and passion. Here we go. Lush Life. Here we go.
Okay, let's have another round of applause for Cleo Parker Robinson, the person and the company. Well, Cleo is a real gift in our community, so we're thrilled to be able to start off this morning with this extraordinary company and this extraordinary woman. I'm Gary Steuer. I'm president and CEO of the Bonfils Stanton Foundation, which served as one of the 4 local hosts of this year's convention. I'm also happy to say that I came to this work through the local arts field, having previously served as the chief cultural officer for the city of Philadelphia. So I know many of you from that role, and I also one time was vice president for private sector affairs at Americans for the Arts. So I know many of you through that role as well. So many connections to so many folks around the country, and so thrilled to have you here in Denver with us. It's my job in just a couple of minutes to orient you to the 2 plenary conversations you're going to hear today, one in just a few minutes and one in our second plenary session later today. So together, these 2 conversations are about how artists, agencies, and public and private partners are collaborating to activate citizens, improve communities, and unite us all. This morning's conversation is titled Driving Forward with the Artist Activist, and starts, as our best work in the field does, from the artist. 2 artists, in fact, Sal Guy and Tanya Aguiñiga, are using their mediums to tell new stories, raise up voices, and make people think, from craft to technology, from items as small as a postcard to as large as a looming photograph of a child peeking over the U.S.-Mexico border wall, a project Sal worked on with the artist JR. These 2 artists are part of a vanguard of artists, forcing us to confront the challenges of our country in new ways and giving us new tools to think about how to do it better. The second conversation, which happens a bit later, is called The Arts Unite Us All. And it sometimes feels like unity is a hard ideal to pursue right now, but it's also something the arts are uniquely positioned to drive. Deborah Garcia-Igrejo and Javier Gonzalez, the director of the Santa Fe Arts Commission and the former mayor of Santa Fe, respectively, and Mark Folk and Randy Ustra, the executive director of the Arts Commission of Greater Toledo and president and CEO of the healthcare company ProMedica, which is based there, exemplify what is possible when the arts have strong partners in the public and private sectors. And I should add that I had the pleasure of participating in the National Arts Policy Roundtable last year with Sal Guy, and Deborah and Mayor Gonzalez. So I've had a chance to meet them all, and you're in for a treat. But rather than dive in more deeply in describing what's going to happen, why don't we get right to it? I just have one more person to introduce, and then we'll be ready to go. We are lucky to have Dr. Jandel Allen Davis, the Vice President of Government, External Affairs, and Research for Kaiser Permanente, Colorado, as our guide and moderator through these 2 conversations. I should also add we are lucky to have her in Colorado. Dr. Allen Davis is a certified OBGYN, health advocate, and community leader, as well as a fiber artist and arts advocate. And I should add, she's a pretty extraordinary artist. She is a true Renaissance woman. I can think of no one better to lead these 2 conversations. And so without further ado, please help me in welcoming Dr. Jandel Allen Davis, Sal, and Tanya.
Thank you. That was sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask our 2 artists to come and join us up here. Please have a seat. Well, good morning. And so give a big shout out if you're not from Colorado or Denver. Where's my Denver peeps today? Good, there's a few of us in the audience. Well, to those of you who are not from here, welcome to the Mile High City. As Cleo said, we are high all the time, and not because of the reasons that we all know. I was going to spend a few moments just sort of telling you a bit about my own journey to art, and let alone my own journey, I suppose, through life. And then we're going to get into some really, I hope, terrific, in fact, I know terrific conversation. Daniel Peek, who wrote a book called A Whole New Mind, said 6 things: design, story, symphony, empathy, play, and meaning. These 6 senses increasingly increasingly will guide our lives and shape our world. I'm a physician, I'm a healthcare executive, although whoever saw that coming, and I am an artist. And what I can say when I look back over the journey, since Cleo told her age, I'll tell mine, of 60 years, it's that spirit, that creative spirit that has been infused and imbued in everything that I do. It's all that I do, it's all that I am. It was the fuel behind being, I think, I like to know, a good physician and healer alongside my patients. It's certainly how I seek to lead every day, and it's definitely what I do when I get some time to be in the room that is in flow, doing what the great artists like these guys do and who I seek to be. And it's been through the recognition that right-oriented thinking, which is desperately needed in our country, in our institutions, in our corporations, and all sorts of halls of both healing and teaching and thinking and creating, it's the key to what's going to be required to solve many of our deep, seemingly intractable social issues. So what we're going to have a chance to do, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, is hear from Saul Guy and Tanya Aguiñiga. They're going to introduce themselves in a minute. And with that, and with a huge debt of gratitude to what you do, and how you as part of the artist community, have both, in a way that doesn't happen in society as much as it needs to, with a real welcoming and encouraging spirit. I thank you for welcoming me into the artist community over these years, and just the work you've done to encourage me to keep at it, keep pushing. So let's get into some dialogue and discovery about the power of art and how it can infuse a very different conversation than the ones that are going on. So let me welcome these two. And I'm going to sneak through here, and I think we're going to start, Saul, with you. And it's just going to be the easy question. You know, we know that some of your work has been tied up in issues of immigration, which is a huge activist issue today. It's a sobering time, I think, in our country's history when we think about what's going on at this very moment, at that very intimate space called family. The story of immigration in the U.S.-Mexican border was recently, there was a news story about a mural on the border wall painted by U.S. veterans who'd been deported back to Mexico. And there are countless other art projects that center on that place. But I'd like each of you to talk a little bit about for some time is why do you think the border in particular inspires so much art? And what do you hope happens because of that? And I forgot to show my art, so give me a second. I just realized I didn't do that, so if we can do that. So real quickly, this piece, I had a show in November at Redline Gallery here in Denver with a glass artist where we, through very disparate media, sort of very disparate media, explored the notions of relationship and connection and community coming together. And this is a series I did on vulnerability. Out of using wool roving, it's Nuno felting. And so this piece is called I Am, that notion of just opening up the little bit we show of each other. And then a little bit more that we are willing to, if we're willing to be vulnerable, which I think arts bring out in us, the notion of revealing a bit more of ourselves, which brings that notion of folks coming together even more. This one is sharing, where we get a little bit closer and begin to let a little bit of ourselves or more of ourselves pour out. And then there's that place, that space where we hope to get through the use of art and certainly through the use of community to the place where you are literally letting every bit of yourself show, being incredibly vulnerable, which we know is a courageous act. And I think that's some of the beautiful thing that creativity and the arts bring to us. And this is this piece called Raw, which is when I finished it, I look back and say, yeah, that's how it feels when you really wring your whole self out, lay your whole self out there, that notion of rawness. And so with that, I'd like to hear a little bit of rawness and I Am and revealing of yourself. So why don't you all tell us a bit about what you do and why you do it?
Sure. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Saul.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Saul!
My name's Saul. I talk with my hands, so it could be a problem. I'm hitting things. I think that, first of all, thank you for having me for Americans for the Arts and for everybody for gathering today around, this is the conversation that keeps me sane. I want to share a couple of things and a couple of projects. And I think, I consider myself the richest man in the world, truly. I don't measure that by what's in my pocket. I measure it by what I receive in my heart by reaching out and learning on a daily basis. And, I've been really privileged to work in multiple disciplines. Someone was talking to me saying, oh, you're a storyteller. And I think it's different, actually. I think actually build bridges, and perhaps I'm an empathy conduit or a warrior trying to get people to understand on different sides of the divide. And I want to show a video and talk about a couple projects today, and maybe we'll just show a video instead of me kind of stumbling over my words. I want to share a video that me and some friends worked on when we were looking at criminal justice and mass incarceration, and inspired by the incredible Brian Stevenson. So maybe we'll run that video to start. Maybe we'll just pull up I want to share a couple of things and then get into this conversation, a couple of things. But, that piece with Brian was, I saw him at TED. He blew my mind. It was just, how do I get people who are maybe not getting into rooms like these or in different spaces and places who are the most affected to hear? And I see things through a hip-hop lens, and my friends are brilliant dancers, and we all came together because we were inspired by Brian, and I think that's what inspiration does. I want to share with you two other projects quickly so we can get into the discussion, but you guys all know these images of, do we see them? How do I? There we are. Boom, technology, baby. So you guys know about this place called Standing Rock that came into the news, I guess it's a year and a half ago now. I had the great privilege of being in Standing Rock 10 years ago, when all I said was, hey, I'm going to Standing Rock, and my friends would say, where? And it was a bunch of, a great fortune that I arrived in the community and was able to learn in the community and start working with the youth in the community. And you see something like this, and we're all, it was a great moment and a symbolic moment, even with the pipeline being denied, it proved something to us around how we can gather. What's interesting is how the story arrived. I got a phone call when they were first getting ready to put the pipeline in from the community, and they said, we got to do something about it. And initially, I was sitting there with my friends, and they were asking, so like, can we make a video? Can we make something? How do we spread the message? And I was like, oh, this is a tough one. I mean, Native Americans, genocide, land disputes. You got drug and alcohol issues. I mean, the list goes on. All these things that are very real, but honestly, we're a bit numb to them. And then they said something interesting to me. They said that they were going to put the pipeline about 200 yards from the school down in Standing Rock. And I said, I got it. Let's go talk to the kids. So we showed up, and these kids you see here are part of the first video we ever made. And we made this video, and we asked these kids something real simple. They said, what does the river mean to you? What does water mean to you? And these young people were the ones who said water is life, who said no DAPA. We made this first little video that was seen by maybe 40 or 50,000 people, but it was the spark of something. And the reason I believe it was the spark of something was because it was youth-led, it was Native-led, and all the way through they led this narrative. Even someone like me as an outsider, I would only contribute when asked to. So example, here's a photo of my auntie LaDonna and my uncle Miles, who recently passed, but bless him. And that when the youth stood up, the elders were the ones that embraced them, and they said to be prayerful and peaceful. And all the things that happened as the camp gathered, you thought it was some sort of, that it was maybe, there was nothing, it was all intentional. The community that gathered there, led by natives, even to the point where we needed to amplify this, we had all sorts of celebrities and different people, from Shailene Woodley and Mark Ruffalo, and we had these rules. So if any celebrity was going to come to Standing Rock, they had to hang out with a kid. And if the New York Times wanted to do a story, they had to take on, because they thought someone famous was there, they had to go with a young person from Standing Rock. So I learned a lot there, as you can imagine. There's one more project I want to share with you that we were talking about earlier. This is Caquito, and this is at the border last fall between Mexico and the U.S. And you may have seen this image. It kind of went around the world. You might know this guy. It's my friend JR, and I don't know who the guy to his right is. He looks a little strange. But what's interesting about this, that joke didn't land very well, but that's okay.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm trying my best here. Nonetheless. So what's interesting about this is two things I want to share was, JR and I have been talking about doing something at the wall for 6-7 years, what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And we went down and we had an opportunity, we were scouting, and we met this little boy. You see him on the right there. That's Caquito. And it was very serendipitous. I won't get into all those details, but it was about once we met him, and JR was taking pictures of him in his crib, interestingly enough, and we left because we didn't think we weren't sure what we were going to do. And JR realized that him looking at us over his crib was the photo that we used. But what was interesting is he spent about 6 months planning this. We had to go down, we had to get the Chamber of Commerce in Tecate. We had to get buy-in on both sides of the border. We had to talk to the U.S. Border Patrol. We had to talk to the Mexican side, which strangely the Mexican side was much more easy to deal with. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is that we spent 6 months doing it, and I was kind of out of the mix and on my way to get ready to do it in September. I was at Burning Man. Maybe of you guys might have heard of this place. And I was coming off, and I completely still had my mind. I did not. I was in San Jose, completely unplugged for 10 days. And I looked up I was on my way to San Diego to go to Tecate, and I looked at this television screen, and it said that Trump was going to repeal DACA the next day. And I was like, what? We'd been talking about this for years. So when we went and installed this piece, the next day we had this piece. And everybody thought that we did it as a reaction to him repealing it, but in fact, we were working on this idea, and I think ideas like that, they generate and they come in a very synchronistic timing. How did it happen is interesting to just mention quickly, is a lot of you are funders and support the arts. We've had a patron for many years. Some of you probably know her, Lorene Powell Jobs from Emerson, who only because she just did a story in the Washington Post am I allowed to show this picture, because up till then, she would never say that she supported us. She would just come in, we'd ask her, we'd tell her our crazy idea, and she'd support it. But you guys know she's also deep in immigration. And we had this piece in our job. Once you do that, we thought was going to be up for a week. We kept it up longer. We eventually did a dinner at the border, and we shared on the Mexican-U.S. side of the border. And our job really was to put up the piece and get out of the way. And I think what I'm trying to get at and really offer today is the best, these movements, these things that happen that are extraordinary, there's something to them that we seem to overlook all the time, which is that the people most affected by these issues must be the ones to lead us to solutions. We can't come in and speak on behalf of people. It's an impossibility. It will not work. So I think I went over my time. I'll stop
it's
now.
so cool. Some of the things I heard in that, I love the organic quality of this, which is the other thing that as I think about what we can learn from artists and arts in the process is letting go a little bit and trusting the process and not having everything so buttoned up.
But it's ego, man. It shows up. It's like, could you imagine me being out in Standing Rock for 10 years making these videos, and then the world comes and I'm like, well, no, I'm the guy who bridges people to the Native American, and then I'm like, bro, chill out. And when you pull back and you engage when asked, and there was many things along the way of that year-long battle where I was able to contribute, but if I'm proud of anything, I'm proud that I got out of the way and that I listened because I learned and I supported where I could support, and it's a much different thing than just creating for the act of being seen. It's something to the idea of, I like this idea of that I play with a lot of cultural currency rather than financial currency, and that cultural currency would be something that you cannot possess, and in fact it expands by giving. And I believe that's the process of art and creation, and I believe that's the process of nature. A seed from a tree could make a million more seeds. So absolutely. I don't know, I'm just
no, it's cool. I also thought about or reflected that the power you're demonstrating and showing, the power of art to organize respectfully. That whole notion of all that we need in community is there. There's the facilitative power of art. And to do it in a way that just with an image, it just bridges gulfs. It's really cool. This is a beautiful piece. I'm blown away.
It's a fun. The other thing to mention is too, it's the little things that I think are fun. Is the eyes there are the eyes of a dreamer. Someone who met through Emerson Collective. JR went up there and took a photo, and just all these different little nuances of things that happen, of people who, even our interactions with the border guard, who I was so excited to confront when they finally pulled up and asked us what we were doing. And to me, he represented the government and Trump and the wall. And as we started to actually have a conversation, I was looking at him and I was, he was asking what we were doing. And I looked in the back of his truck and I asked him, I said, oh, you're a father, you have seats in the back, car seats.
Yeah.
And he said, no, and my kids are grown. He said, in fact, often I'm encountering young children on the road, and I'm actually a first responder. And all of a sudden, this guy that I wanted so badly to dislike became closer to me. And then he said he was a father, and I'm a father. And he said he was in the military, and he'd been working this job 25 years, and he was going to retire. And in fact, he'd been through multiple presidents. And he started asking what we were doing, and we started sharing and learning, to the point where when we got the permit denied to do the dinner on the side of the border, of the US side, we decided to do it anyways, because that's kind of how we roll. And the border guard shows up. This is a few weeks later, and we look, we're like, oh man, here we go. We would, you know, and who pops out but the guy that we met?
Yes.
And he's like, yo, I heard you guys were coming today, so I changed my shift. Just make sure you don't block the road.
Oh, wonderful.
And then he goes on to tell us about how he was able to, through this piece and people traveling there, he had hundreds of conversations with people, and he could express who he was. And in fact, he's not, the wall is symbolic, and he's not the wall, he's a person. And we have so many similarities, not differences. And I wanted to put it on him as a person. And in fact, I learned that it wasn't that at all.
Yeah, you know, art's power to bridge gulfs, and how do we pull this into our work, our day jobs, as they say, as I think about who's in this audience. It's beautiful, just beautiful. So Tanya, your work is solidly based in craft. Interestingly, we're going to pass this over.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And you've said in other conversations that craft is a great medium for some of the activism-oriented conversations you're looking to spark. Talk a bit more about that. And by the way, buckle your seatbelt. She's going to take us through some stuff fast.
I know. I'm going to, let's see, I can't get the...
If we can get the slides up. There we go.
Okay.
Boom.
Did it get it up? No.
Quick shift.
Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So I originally prepared for a 45-minute presentation, and I only have 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go really fast.
Really fast.
So yeah, so stay awake. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a background as to some of these border issues, because it kind of, to a lot of people, seemed like all of a sudden there was a focus on the border, but the border's been there for a very long time. So this is the border wall as it goes into the ocean. So the left side is Mexico. I have a laser. What? The left side is Mexico. The right side is the US. So I grew up a few blocks from this and lived next to this. This is the view of the border fence for a lot of my life. And so growing up, especially before the 90s, this was a really common scene, which is people running across the freeway on the interstates close to the freeway. And the sign, laser pointer, this sign of the family running across originally was the same as the Animal Crossing sign, and then it got changed because people thought it was inhumane. And so I grew up crossing the border every single day to go to school in the US. So from age 4 to 18, I crossed the border every single day. My parents did it for over 40 years. And so a lot of my trip on the way to school was in the morning. We'd leave like at 3:30 in the morning so that I could be at school by 8. Was a lot of times seeing people, migrants that had been run over. And so I constantly, as a young child, thought about why is it that I, a small, little girl, can come and go between the two sides without any problem, when there's all of these adults that are parents that are sacrificing their life. So growing up, the Border Art Workshop had been founded in 1984, and they had a really long history. They were the first people to put border art into context. And so they would do a lot of performance pieces at the fence. They also did a lot of using of public areas to create art. So this is a Elizabeth Cisco, Louis Hawk, and David Avalos piece. And then this was in 1997. This had a really large impact on my life. This is Toy and Horse by Marco Ramirez R. This was part of Insight, which was a biennial that would happen in Tijuana, where there would be a lot of international artists that would be brought over to make work about the border. Most of these artists were not from Tijuana. Marcos happens to be from Tijuana. This was one of the last insights. And so this was Javier Tellez got shot through a cannon to the other side of the fence. And so then when I joined community college, or when I got to community college, and it was because I didn't have enough money to go to regular school. I became part of the Border Art Workshop, so I started getting really involved in migrant rights work and working with a lot of initiatives that were to bring art's attention to Operation Gatekeeper, which was a strategic reinforcement of the fence between US and Mexico. And what it did was it reinforced the areas that were most valuable and forced migrants to cross through the desert and through more treacherous terrain, which means that the first year of Operation Gatekeeper being enacted, more people died crossing the border than the entire 75 years of previous Border Patrol history. So with the Border Art Workshop, I used art as a way to bring attention to these issues that we faced on the border, with partnerships with different migrant rights organizations, which a lot of them happen to be faith-based, but also California Rural Legal Assistance. And then we also worked really closely with the coroner's office to try to get information as to how people were found, where they were from, their ages, their genders, if possible. I will keep going. And so, because of my background now for 22 years working with communities and also studying art and design and knowing the power that craft has to kind of transcend a lot of art design and all of these different rules that different design disciplines and art disciplines have. I spent 4 years trying to get a grant to do this project on the border. And this was after my mentor, who was one of the founders of the Border Art Workshop, committed suicide. And so I felt the weight of everything that I had done with the Border Art Workshop now fell onto my shoulders. And so I decided that it was time to focus on Tijuana and working with my own community. And so for the first project that I did with the Ambos project, which it means art made between opposite sides, I'm just gonna, because I don't have a lot of time, just talk to you about the border quipu. So our community is very, very stigmatized. Crossing the border every day, you don't talk to other people about it generally. If you're a child like I was, you're breaking the law by attending public school, and so you can easily get kicked out. I had a friend that got kicked out of school, and the principal put a banana in front of her when she was hungry. And he said, "Do you want this banana?" And then she said, "Yes." And then he said, "Well, then tell me, do you live in Mexico or not?" And she said, "Yes." And so then she got the banana and she got kicked out of school. So it's this really complex thing that we have to live through. And a lot of people have obviously a very negative view of what Mexico is. So I decided to do a project that had the lowest possible entry point, which was we give people a postcard. So we're approaching people on the Mexican side that are crossing the border every day. And we approach the car and we say, these two strings represent the relationship between US and Mexico, ourselves at either side of the border, and or our mental state while crossing. Please make a knot. And so then we talk to people that gather at the border, people that are crossing in their car, people that are crossing on foot, and then they make a knot. And then we flip it and we say, what are your thoughts when you cross this border? Or what are your thoughts in relation to living close to the border? And so now we've had over 7,000 participants. And so as a result, we have now conducted the largest survey of border emotion. And so after the election happened, I decided to take the project from, I decided to take the project through the rest of the border because there's a lot of really massive transnational metropolitan areas. So just in San Diego and Tijuana, which is here next to the Pacific where I grew up, at my border crossing, which is just one, 2.5 million cross per month. And so last year we did Tijuana to Ciudad Juarez. And right now, a crew of 8 people that are my collaborators left today. I meet them in El Paso on Monday, and then we spend 3 weeks driving the rest of the border, which is all of Texas, to conduct the rest of the border quipu. So that shows you what we did last year. And so the project focuses on documenting border life, to kind of paint a picture of what things are actually like. So here's a bunch of photos of just what the border looks like in different places. It looks very different from place to place, and in a lot of places you can see, like here you can see like H&M and Nike on the other side of the fence, and this says "Penetrate Me," which is a mural that an artist collective did in Mchale. This is part of a new wall that's being installed that's part of an old contract. You can see here the scale. This is the old fence, and this is a new fence that they're installing, and this is in a seismic area, and the footings are only about 4 feet deep. And then in other areas, like in Texas, the border doesn't have a wall. It turns into the river, and that's what divides. Mchale was founded by Chinese immigrants who were forced to live underground for about 80 years because of Chinese Exclusion Act. This is a memorial to Toñito, who was a little boy that was killed by the Border Patrol through the fence for holding a rock. And right next door is a photo of a daycare center that uses the fence as a wall. This is memorials to the thousands of women that are part of their femicides in Juarez. And then this is a photo of a young girl next to the fence in Mchale doing gymnastics. And we meet with a lot of artists at every single city to document what type of art is made at the border. And some of the people have absolutely nothing to do with actual Mexicans or immigration. They just kind of make a living off of focusing on the border. We've done a lot of collaborations with artists. This is a sound piece that we did in memorial to migrants, a weaving through the fence, which you're not supposed to touch through the fence.
Yo creo que así está bien.
A rust piece that we did in front of the Trump prototypes to document, because a lot of people don't believe me that there's a fence, and there's been a fence for a long time. So this is kind of showing them that it does exist. And then this fence is the old fence, which was actually landing mats from the Gulf War and from Vietnam. This is another rust piece where I hug the fence until it leaves an impression on my shirt. And different workshops that we've done with different schools. And so as a result, and I don't have that much time, we've kind of found out that different emotions are projected by each place. And so right now we have Tijuana and San Diego. You can't see it because of the writing, but it's anger. Nogales and Nogales was fear. Douglas and Agua Prieta was gratitude, and El Paso and Juarez was violence. And a lot of what created the sense of gratitude in this one particular place is you can see the Border Patrol's right here. He's being really respectful and was actually in high school with this girl who happens to be married to the mayor. And so there, the two cities, the mayors of both sides, worked together on cultural programming at the fence. So this is a mural that they did where it looks like an open door. There's a really amazing ease of transportation between the both sides, so you can get back and forth really easily. Let's see. And the Border Patrol happens to be really helpful in some places. Here's a guy that saved us from being stuck in the desert. And so right now there's an exhibition that's up of a lot of this work in the Museum of Arts and Design in New York. So here's some of the information on that, and that's up until October, and then from there it goes to DC to the Renwick. And so like I said, right now the girls are on the road. I meet up with them. We're spending a lot of time documenting and doing social media collaborations with artists so that we can help paint a picture of what all these different places look like and their character. A lot of the land next to the fence is private land. There's a lot of militias that patrol it, and there's now National Guard that we're gonna have to be dealing with. And so here, things at the border are constantly changing, as you can see from the detention of children and separation of families. The wall is its character's being changed really dramatically, really fast. There's a lot of violence. And so, yeah, so we need help networking with border allies. Any contacts that you have for post-archiving help, data entry, contacts for qualitative data analysis, follow us on social media. The project is happening right now. And yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I did it fast.
Wow. Wow. So why do you think the border inspires so much art?
I don't think it inspires so much art. I think that the border is the most physical place that represents, you know, extreme racism, extreme classism. It is the one physical thing that psychologically affects so much of us, especially those of us that live next to it. So it's really easy to use it as a platform for discussing different things. I wouldn't necessarily say that it inspires. I mean, if we could get it gone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's just a place where a lot of us choose to draw attention to and then use that as a starting point.
So then maybe to paraphrase the question, what do you hope will happen that's different than the way that the conversations have gone on through using art as the medium or the
I mean, I think
facilitator?
that, and that's one of the things that the Border Art Workshop learned in all of its years of history, is that if you give the media a good image, they will use it and your story will get some text and you'll be able to get some people some information that's crucial. And so I think that through this project, I just really hope that people start to understand that the border isn't a black and white place. It's a really fluid place. It's a place that's, you know, a lot of us have, you know, thousands of years of history of going back and forth, and there's a really, you know, a strong relationship between the US and Mexico at the border. And so I just hope that people have a more humane understanding of how to treat their neighbors.
Do you think that, this is crazy, what I'm about to say. To what extent has art, is what goes on there and through the expression of art actually more a bridge than really a wall? And that more with respect to the people who actually live there, even as I think about your story, Saul, of the Border Patrol. So there, as you were talking, I thought about there must be just amazing stories in what ends up on these cards. So what happens next as you think about your project?
With my project? The next thing after this is we have to transcribe all the information. We have to translate everything and make it available to researchers, lawmakers, people that are actually trained in like how to disseminate information the best. Because I'm trained as a furniture designer. A lot of this stuff is just kind of intuitive things and really personal. You know, like I'm really personally connected to this subject.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so the next thing is that, but then also I think that that idea of making art between opposite sides is a really beautiful way to go about engaging communities that don't usually have, you know, dialogue with each other. And so it could be something that could be easily translated to different communities, to different types of issues. And obviously there's a lot of borders around the world that are, that are very contentious.
So, you know, as I think about both of the stories and both of your work and who's here in this audience, including Kaiser Permanente, who's a big supporter of the arts, what would you tell us, or what would be your suggestions or recommendations for how we can further this activism in a way that achieves what you hope to achieve beyond the importance and the beauty of actually creating bridges between folks? So what would you tell us? What advice would you give us around how to actually jump into this space?
You get pretty excited when you get to actually, you can tell us, but I can tell us. It's great. I think that the value, this is why they get back to this idea of cultural currency. I've always been like, and if we agree in this room, and I think I would assume that we can, that the impact of art is far outside a dollar. In fact, there's intangibles that we can't measure that are the you know, the weaving or the strings or the bridges of things that are really important, like compassion and empathy and happiness and joy and artist sustainability and the value of an artist. I believe that I think there's a need to increase that value and how there's so many funders in the room and different people and how artists get access. The first thing an artist needs is sustainability. They need their health, their wellness, their ability to cover their bills so they can create. So there's usually a pull. You get asked to come and present at places, and sometimes just because you're an artist, you're supposed to show up. And then outside of that, I think that there's an idea around, I've always been amazed where in the philanthropic world, a big organization, and this is not to call them out, to use for an example, a UNICEF, for example, could get $1 million donation from an organization or individual like that without a bat of an eye. And then you really don't know what happened. You might show up at an event. At the same time, an artist who wants to do a project, it can have all this impact that we're talking about. If they ask for $10,000, everyone starts to question what they're going to do with it. And I think if we start to shift that currency and the value set for artists and lower the barriers of entry for people to get access, because it's not just people at the top, it's how do we find a middle class for artists so people can have a sustainable living and people in communities that are small communities can express themselves.
Cool. Thanks. Tanya, you got 3 seconds.
3 seconds. Oh, okay.
We'll take chair's privilege.
Okay.
You got longer than that. Go ahead.
Okay, I would say, a lot of this stuff sounds really big and it sounds really, I don't know, like fancy or like really separate from your own experiences. And all of this craziness, like none of it takes away from your own experience and from all the things that happen within your own community and the communities that you're a part of. And so none of this is like, oh, look at this. And so I'm passing judgment on like how boring your place is or whatever. So I think that there's a lot that people can do within their own communities. And I think that the most impactful projects are the ones that come out of your personal connection to a problem. So I would say that, like if possible, people should engage with their own communities that they're a part of and, just ask, how can I help? And just really, be open as humans to talk to each other really normally. And if you don't know something, admit, I don't know that, so can you like help me understand? So I would, give a simple, just talk to the people in your community, talk to your neighbors,
The beauty of what I heard woven throughout this, if I were going to sum it up, thinking about the 3 heads that I get to live in as a physician, healer, an executive, and an artist, is some of our work is to think about, I'm going to use business speak, the value proposition of art and of creativity. And how do we bring that into the workplaces, into our workspaces to actually begin to solve problems where the two are complementary? This notion of left-oriented ways of approaching problems and right-oriented ways. Sponsorship, I heard, both in terms of not just the idea of the beauty of art, but the idea of actually putting some currency behind it in big ways. And then this notion of translation. We have a real, I think, accountability and responsibility to be the translator between those who don't necessarily see the messages that art seeks to, the ways that art seeks to bring conversation at a different level, let alone solve problems, but also then to translate it the other way too. So to serve as the intermediary between the art space and the rest of the world. And then finally, this idea of bringing artists into our spaces as a way to free up discussion, to make it very, very different in terms of how we think about activism. It's a safe space. It's a space of just commonality, the smiles, it just taps into something that I think is part of all of us. As I think of Picasso, who said, every child's an artist, the trick is not to lose the artist as the child grows. The idea of getting back to that sort of innocence is work that you all have the opportunity to help us sort of learn to do better, and we to work on your behalves to do it, to bring that beauty forward. So thank you for what you will continue to do in the very safe and in a cool way, non-threatening way of bringing up and creating the space for us to have conversations that we must have to solve problems that we must solve. So would you all please thank this, these 2 folks. Thank you for what you do. And we're going to exit stage something.
Hold on, I want to take a photo.
Oh, he's got to take a photo of you all.
Too much light on you guys, sorry.
All right, thank you all. Just head on off this way.
Can we give them one more round of applause as they head off the stage? So my name's Clayton Lord. I am the Vice President of Local Arts Advancement at Americans for the Arts, and it seems entirely fitting to follow that amazing conversation with what we're about to do, which is just in about 5 minutes, we're going to debut a new tool for you all that we've been working on for about the last year that we hope is going to facilitate a lot more dialogue about the role that arts and culture can play in conversations about all sorts of things, ranging from immigration to education, health and wellness, and so on. It's been about a year since we released Arts and Economic Prosperity 5. A lot of you participated in it. And that's work that we've honed at Americans for the Arts with all of you over the course of more than 25 years. And what it has in it is detailed, impactful information about the impact of the arts on your specific community. And that data, just in the past year, we know from stories that you've told us, has been used to argue successfully for millions of dollars in new funding for arts and culture and a lot more awareness for the role that arts and culture is playing in a lot of communities right now. But what we've heard from you also is that the power of AEP, the data points, the research backing, the targeted messaging that resonates with exactly the people you need to convince, you want something like that to unleash all of the other ways that the arts can be part of impacting community life. And thanks to the Mellon Foundation, the Doris Duke Foundation, and the Kresge Foundation, Americans for the Arts is embarking on a journey to try and bring to life the hopes you've expressed to us, a whole portfolio on the social impact of the arts that is anchored by an exciting new tool that I'm happy to share right now. This, maybe, is called the Arts and Social Impact Explorer. And what it is, it's still being tweaked. This is beta. We're going to ask you to play with it and tell us all of the things that you think are amazing and all the things that you think maybe could work a little bit better. But this is an online primer that draws together top-line research, example projects, core research papers, and service and partner organizations about 26 different sectors and how the arts can be part of their conversation, ranging from tourism to health and wellness, immigration to innovation, faith to environment. It functions like the surface of a lake of knowledge, and it's designed as an entry point to a large and growing body of research projects and support organizations that exist at the intersection of the arts and various other parts of the community. It creates an experience that can scale from casual surfing to deep exploration of a topic, and that will allow people who wish to visit it to move from this area into all of the websites, all of the research that are linked to from the Social Impact Explorer, and to engage directly with other partners all across the country who are doing amazing projects, supporting this work, and creating the research that tells us the impact that it has. All of this is an effort to make more visible the incredible and wide-reaching impact of the arts and drive conversation. So now I'm going to attempt to read a script while playing with it to show you a little bit of how it does. If, for example, you wanted to take a look at the arts and military intersection, which a lot of you I know have been working on, you'll first get a micro summary on each intersection to set out terminology and a bit of context. And if you click on Learn More, you'll be able to get a little more information. It's a great summary piece to tell you a little bit of the interactions that arts and military have had. If you X out of that and you use the forward arrows, you'll get to something we call impact points. You'll see one right at the start there, but if you click on Learn More, you'll get up to 6 more impact points that are culled from research that exists out there in the world, all of which is freely accessible on the internet. We deliberately did this in a way that allows you to find every single link, and then we've also included all of the research and citations down at the bottom so that you can link to those things and read the whole report if you want to. If you take a look here, you'll see, for example, that 2 out of 3 soldiers who've been treated with art therapy say it improves their symptoms of depression. You can get an 83% decrease in stress levels from patients who have traumatic brain injury who go through art therapy. And art therapy has the potential to save $1.7 billion a year, over $1,000 per veteran who go through art therapy programs. But that's not all we've got. You click on the X, you come back, and you start to see some examples of practice. We have gathered over 1,000 data points, pictures, stories, websites, and email addresses to talk about not only the research, but the way that the work is happening right now. And so, for example, you can see here the Veterans Project, A Long Journey Home, which is a project of Diavolo Dance Company in Los Angeles. Has anyone heard of this project? It's amazing. It's been touring around the country right now. And you can see here, you'll get a picture, you've got the title of it, you've got a brief summary of what it is, and then maybe most important, you've got a direct link to their website as well as an email address of a contact that you can email to ask them more about this project. There are 5 or 6 of these for all 26 sectors. And then you can move on, you can see our reading list. Thanks to 4 amazing authors, which I'm going to thank at the very end of this, who did a lot of work gathering information all across the internet. We've got up to 5 different research reports at each intersection, depending on how much already exists in the field. We've also, through this work, been able to identify gaps in the research that exists, and we're hoping that future phases of this work will allow us to commission new research projects that will help fill in what's going on here. Finally, you can see the organizations that are working at these intersections, each one of them with a title, a brief summary of what they're doing, and a link directly to their website. Our hope is that eventually we will be able to add more projects, more organizations through interactions with you. So once this is out of beta, we're going to be creating a way for you to submit the projects and the organizations and the research points that you already know about and that you want to share with us so that we can put it into here. The other thing I want to share really quickly, these aren't up yet, and you'll see that there's a lot of little gaps in this one if you take a close look, but we're creating 4-page fact sheets that will be downloadable and able to be shared as PDFs freely with anyone you want to on all 26 of these sectors. They gather the information that's in this pinwheel, and you can use it, print it out, and take it directly to your decision makers who you're trying to have a conversation with. These will include all of the different pieces of information in a highly visible, exciting format that people will engage with, and then perhaps most importantly, it also includes all of the citations so that people know that this is information that is research-backed. We're really grateful to the Mellon Foundation, the Duke Foundation, and the Kresge Foundation for supporting the work that we're doing at the intersection. We're also thankful to all of the people who were involved. I just want to specifically highlight a few. The 4 authors who wrote the first drafts of all 26 of these papers are Rebecca Novick, Mark Valdez, Devra Thomas, and Jason Singh. And then we also had a lot of work from Ann Canzanetti and Elizabeth Sweeney, as well as on the AFTA staff, Graham Dunstan, Kim Hedges, and Mara Walker. And then it was designed by the firm Machinery and the web firm New Target. The last thing I want to say is that this is also a mobile interface. And so if you go right now on your phone to americansforthearts.org/social impact, you'll see a slightly different looking version of what you saw here that you can play around with on your phone anytime you want to, or you can head out into the lobby where there is a giant touch screen that you can play with in order to explore all of the over 1,000 bits of data that we've got in this project. Thank you very much for all of the work that you're doing, because it comes into all of this, and I hope that you have a great time playing with it. Hold on. There we go. And with that, I have a few housekeeping announcements, and then I'm going to send you out that way. So first, I want to thank again Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, Gary Steuer, Jandel Allen Davis, Saul Guy, and Tanya Aguiñiga for an inspiring first session. Really got us revved up and going. This is the end of the first of a 2-part plenary. So after the doors open, you can enjoy about a 30-minute networking break out in the center stage area as we reset this main ballroom and get it ready for our leadership awards in our next plenary session. A very important note. Please take all of your personal items with you when you exit the ballroom, as we do need to reset the tables and chairs and we don't want you to lose anything. Any remaining items will be placed in the back of the room, and we will have you back here at 11. While you're out in center stage, in addition to visiting our fantastic vendors and exhibitors, it's an opportunity to engage a little bit more closely with Tanya Aguiñiga. And one thing that you might say to her when you see her is happy belated birthday, because she spent her 40th birthday with us yesterday, and we are very grateful for her having made that wonderful and wise choice. So can we just give her a quick round of applause? In addition to just doing a quick meet and greet with her, you're also going to have an opportunity to see some rope accessories that she and her team have made that were born out of a love for transforming soft and utilitarian materials into structural sculptures that are vehicles of empowerment. The sales of these accessories help fund nonprofit community-based initiatives and provide job trainings for a diverse group of minorities in Los Angeles. So please visit her in this break right now and thank her for all of her amazing work, and Saul as well. You can also try out the Social Impact Explorer, as I said, and finally, if you were meaning to sign up for an art venture but you haven't quite gotten around to it yet, this is your last opportunity to do so. You can do that at the registration desk. I don't know how many tours are still available. I know a lot of them are filling up, but if you want to, please take your chances there. For now, please join me in again thanking our panelists, and we'll see you right back here at 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have about a 30-minute break. If we could ask you to please make your way out of the ballroom. We do have a little bit of coffee out there for you as an incentive. And we will reset and welcome you back in just a few minutes. Thank you. Once again, please head for the doors. We have coffee out there for you, and we'll be ready in just a few minutes. Thank you.